This video will show you how to get started with the Arista Advanced Lighting Control System mobile app. After downloading the app, click the icon to enter. This will take you to the login screen. If you do not have an account, click the Create Account button. Otherwise, enter your name and password and then press Login. Now you're at the Project screen. A project would include the overall location, which could be a building or a campus. Press the plus icon to create a new project. The first step is to name the project. Filling in the address is recommended but not required. When completed, press Save. This will take you back to the project screen where you will see the new project listed. Tap on your project name to enter. Now you are in the Areas screen. You can see the Areas icon highlighted on the bottom left. An area is the portion of the project you will be working on. For example, in an office building that has multiple floors, each floor would be an area. Tap the plus symbol to add a new area. For this example, we will name it Third Floor and then hit Save. Once your areas have been made, you can click on the name to enter a specific area. Now click the plus icon to add devices to the area. Hit Scan on the upper right to select in-range devices. Only devices that are available and not assigned to another area will be visible. Before scanning, make sure to wake up any battery-powered devices by pressing a button on the device. You must add that device within 5 to 30 minutes before it goes into sleep mode again. Available devices will be listed on the app by model number and then an identifying number and letter combination. In our first space, we have two devices, an ALC-1R one-channel controller and an ALC-CMP ceiling-mounted dual-tech occupancy sensor. Press Wink next to the device names to verify that we are installing the correct devices. The blue light will start flashing more rapidly on the sensor, and the controller will make a clicking sound and flash the lights it controls on and off. Select both devices on the app and press Install. This may take several minutes. Once installed, press Done. Now we need to create a space for the devices we just added. Click Add a Space and then Go. A space is a portion of the area in which the devices will be installed. First, click Devices on the bottom of the screen to find and configure the devices we just installed. For this example, we will first choose the ALC-1R controller. Click on the name to rename it. For this example, we will add S01 to the name of the controller to indicate that this device is located in space number 1. Then click Save. You can also adjust the settings of each channel from the configuration screen by selecting that channel. For example, the channel can be used to control a light or a plug load. You can also set the type of light it will control and the power on action. For this example, we will leave all settings at their default. You can click Send Settings to lock in any changes. Now click the back arrow to go back to the device configuration screen and back again to go to the devices screen. Now choose the ALC-CMP dual-tech sensor to configure its settings. Again, we will add S01 to the device name, so that we know this device is in space number 1. Then press Save. For this example, we will also change the timeout settings to 10 minutes instead of the default 20. We will leave the walkthrough mode on and leave the sensor trigger to either PIR or ultrasonic. From this screen, you can also adjust the sensitivity and type of communication with the controller. To lock in any changes, press Send Settings. Then click Back to continue. Now that both devices in this space have been renamed and configured, we can click the Spaces icon at the bottom of the screen to configure the space. For this example, we will name it S01 for space number 1 and then press Add. Press the arrow next to the space name to go into the space settings. Now we can create zones in the space by clicking in the Zones icon on the bottom row. A zone is a specific portion of the space that will be controlled. For this example, there is only one zone in this space, which we will name Z01 for Zone 1. Now hit Add. Click the arrow by the zone name to go into the zone settings. First, add any output devices to the zone by selecting the Outputs icon at the bottom of the screen, and then pressing the plus icon at the top of the screen. There is only one output device, the ALC1R1 channel that we configured in the previous steps. We know this is the correct device because we see S01 in its name for Space 1. Select each channel and click Save. Confirm that all devices in the zone are powered on and within range, and then press Ready. As the controller is being added to the zone, the lights that it controls will turn off and it will make a clicking sound. When complete, press OK. Now that our output device has been added to the zone, we can add any input devices by selecting Inputs on the bottom row and then clicking the plus icon. Under Unassigned Inputs, we see the ALC CMP sensor we previously configured and renamed with S01. Check the box next to this device and press Save. Again, confirm that all devices in the zone are powered on and within range, and then press Ready. When complete, press OK. Now that the sensor has been added to the zone, we can configure the zone by pressing the gear icon at the bottom of the screen. We can change the setting to either occupancy or vacancy mode, and change the light levels and timing of the zone. Click the Levels button. The default run level is 80%, which is code in many areas. We can also set a standby level so that the lights never turn completely off. But for this example, we will keep it at 0. Now hit the back arrow. To change the timing, click the Timing button. From here, we can change the timing of the lights and enable blink warn and manual override settings as desired. For this example, we will keep the settings at the default and go back to the previous screen. Once configuration is complete, press the back arrow to go back to the space screen, then back to the area screen. In our next space, which we will call Space 2, we will have 3 separate zones. Zone 1 is for the front half lights and will be controlled by channels 1 and 2 of our 4-channel controller. And Zone 2 is for the back half lights and will be controlled by channels 3 and 4. The third zone is for a plug load, which will be controlled by a single-channel controller. In this space, we have an in-wall display switch that we will configure as a scene selector. We have a 4-button switch that we will configure with scene selection capability as well. And we also have a ceiling-mounted sensor. The switches and sensor will affect all 3 zones within the space. Hit the plus symbol to add these devices to the area, and then press Scan. Make sure to wake up any battery-powered devices, especially the wireless 4-button switch, which must be installed within 5 minutes of activation. To wake it up, press both the top and bottom buttons until you see the LEDs flash. On the app, select the ALC4B4 button switch and press the Wink button to make sure it's found the correct one. Its LED lights will flash blue. Now select the ALC CMP ceiling mounted sensor and press Wink. The blue LED will flash more rapidly inside the sensor. Now select the ALC IWD in-wall display switch and press Wink. The display screen will flash. Select the ALC1R one-channel controller and press Wink. It will make a clicking sound. Finally, select the ALC4R four-channel controller and press Wink. Its LED lights will flash on all of its channels. Again, any wireless switches must be selected within 5 minutes of activation. Now that all devices in the space have been selected, press Install Devices. Again, this may take several minutes. When installing the IWD switch, you will be prompted to configure it as a dimmer or a scene selector. For this example, we will choose Scene Selector. When all devices have been installed, press Done. Now choose Add a Space and then Go. Now select Devices on the bottom row. First up is the ALC1R one-channel controller. Click the arrow to configure. If you're unsure, you can press Wink again to make sure it's the correct one. As we did with the devices in Space 1, we will add S02 to the device's name so that we know this device is located in Space 2. Then click Save. Now press Channel to configure the channel. Because we will be using this device to control an outlet, we need to change the function from Light to Plug Load and press Done. Now select Send Settings. When complete, press the back arrow to exit the channel and back again to exit the controller. Next is the ALC4B 4-button switch. Press the top and bottom buttons on the device again to wake it up. On the app, press the arrow next to the device name. Again, add S02 to the device name and click Save. From the configuration screen, you can set the functions of each button. For button 1, the short press, we will leave it at the default, which is On. The long press we will leave as disabled, and we will make the double press activate Scene 1. We will set up what all of the scenes do in a later step. For button 2, we will make the short press activate Scene 2. The long press we will leave as Dim Up and make the double press activate Scene 3. On button 3, we will make the short press Scene 4. Long press we will leave as Dim Down and make the double press Scene 5. Finally, for button 4, the short press we will leave as Off. The long press we will leave disabled, and we will make the double press clear the scene. Press Send Settings to lock in these changes. Then press Back to provision the next device. Next up is the ALC4R 4-channel controller. As before, add S02 to the name and then press Save. Then press Back to provision the next device. The next device to configure is the ALC CMP ceiling mounted sensor. Again, add S02 to the name and then press Save. Under Configuration, we will change the timeout setting to 5 minutes. We will also change the PIR sensitivity to 100% and ultrasonic to 75%. Hit Send Settings to lock in these changes. Now click Back. Next is the ALC IWD in-wall display switch. Again, add S02 to the name and press Save. During device installation, we set up the switch to function as a scene selector instead of a standard dimmer. Because it's a scene selector provisioned to a space, it will control all zones within that space and won't need to be added to any zones individually. We will keep the default scene selector settings and press Back. Now that we've renamed and configured all of the devices for Space 2, click on the Spaces icon on the bottom row to set up the space. Under Create New Space, name it S02 for Space 2 and then press Add. Now tap on the arrow next to the space name to configure it. On the bottom row, select the Zones icon to create the zones for your space. As mentioned before, we will create 3 zones for Space 2. Zones 1 and 2 will control the front half and back half lights. Zone 3 we will name ZPL because it will control a plug load. Click on the arrow next to Zone 1 to configure it. To add output devices, choose Outputs on the bottom row and press the plus icon at the top of the screen. For this example, Zone 1 will be controlled by channels 1 and 2 of our 4-channel controller. So choose these channels and then press Save and then Ready. When complete, press OK. Now add input devices to this zone by choosing Inputs on the bottom row and pressing the plus icon. The app will scan for devices. For this zone, we want to add the ALC4B 4-button switch and the ALC CMP ceiling sensor. You can see them under Unassigned Inputs. Select these devices and then press Save. Make sure to again wake up the 4-button switch by pressing the top and bottom buttons. When it's activated, press Ready. After the input devices have been added, press OK to continue. Now we can configure the zone by choosing the gear icon on the bottom row. Because both a switch and sensor have been added, Zone 1 has been set up as automatic on and off with a manual override. For this example, we will leave all settings at their default and press the back arrow to go back to the Zones screen. Press Z02 to set up Zone 2. To add output devices, choose Outputs at the bottom of the screen and press the plus icon at the top. We want Zone 2 to be controlled by channels 3 and 4 of the ALC4R controller. So we will select those channels, hit Save, and then hit Ready. When the process is complete, press OK. Now we can add input devices to Zone 2 by selecting the Inputs icon at the bottom row and then pressing the plus icon. We want to add the 4-button switch and ceiling sensor to Zone 2 as well, so select these from the Inputs from Other Zones section. Make sure to only choose inputs that we labeled as S02 for Space 2. Now press Save. Again, wake the 4-button switch by pressing the top and bottom buttons and then click Ready. When complete, press OK. Now we can configure Zone 2 by pressing the gear icon on the bottom row. Again, we will keep all default settings and hit the back arrow to go back to the Zones screen. Now press ZPL to set up the plug load control zone. With Outputs selected, press the plus icon to add an output device. We will add the ALC1R that we provisioned as a plug load controller during configuration. This is verified by the plug icon next to the channel. Press Save and then Ready. When complete, press OK. Add inputs by selecting the Inputs icon on the bottom row and pressing the plus icon. As with Zones 1 and 2, we will select the 4-button switch and the ceiling sensor and hit Save. Again, wake up the 4-button switch by pressing the top and bottom buttons and then click Ready. When complete, press OK. To configure the plug load zone, select the gear icon at the bottom of the screen. As with the lighting zones, the plug load will automatically turn on if the space is occupied and will have a manual override. We will keep the default settings and hit the back arrow. Now that our zones have been set up, we can create scenes for Space 2 by selecting the Scenes icon on the bottom row. To create or import a scene, press the plus icon. There are no scenes to import, so we will press the Create a Scene button. For the first scene, we will turn all zones on at 100%. We will name it All on 100. And click the Save and Send Scene button. When complete, press the plus icon and the Create a Scene button to create Scene 2. We will name this scene Zone 1 50 and turn on Zone 1 at 50%, Zone 2 at 100%, and turn the plug load on. Again, press Save and Send Scene. For Scene 3, again press the plus icon and the Create a Scene button. We will name this scene Zone 250 and set Zone 1 at 100%, Zone 2 at 50%, and turn the plug load on. Press Save and Send Scene. For Scene 4, again press the plus icon and Create a Scene button. We will name this scene PL Off. For this scene, we won't change the light levels of Zone 1 or 2, but we will turn the plug load off. Again, press Save and Send Scene. Finally, we will create Scene 5 by pressing the plus icon and Create a Scene button. We will name it PL Off L75. And we will set Zones 1 and 2 to 75% and turn the plug load off. Once again, press Save and Send Scene. Now that our scenes have been created, press the Choose Scene Selectors button. This will allow the IWD display switch that was provisioned to Space 2 to select between those scenes. For this example, we will choose all 5 scenes and then press Send. Now we can select scenes with either the 4-button switch or IWD switch. On the IWD display, we will be able to see which scene has been selected. Hit the back arrow to continue. Space 2 is complete, so we will now move on to Space 3. This space includes a phase dimming controller to control track lights, a PIR ceiling sensor, an IWD display switch, and an ALC2B 2-button switch. Choose Devices from the bottom row to provision these devices. Both the sensor and 2-button switch are wireless and battery powered, so we will press a button on the sensor and the top and bottom buttons of the switch to wake them up. Press the plus icon and then Scan. We can see the ALC1P phase dimming controller, the ALC-CMP ceiling sensor, the ALC2B 2-button switch, and the IWD display switch. Select these devices and press the Install Devices button, and then Install. As before, this may take several minutes. When installing the IWD switch, you will be prompted to configure it as a dimmer or a scene selector. For this example, we will keep it at the default and choose Dimmer. When complete, press Done. Now press Add a Space and then Go. As before, we will select the Devices option on the bottom row. At the top of the screen, we can see the devices we just provisioned. Click the arrow next to the phase dimmer. add S03 to the name, so we know it's for space 3, and then Save. Now press the arrow to configure channel 1. From here, you can change the phase dimming type between leading edge and trailing edge. You can change the auto ramp time, power on action, and enable blink warn. To ensure all settings are within the NEMA SSL 7A standard, you can check this selection. When you select the levels option on the bottom row, you can select the run, partial, and standby levels, and again have the option to force all settings to comply with NEMA SSL 7A. For this example, we will keep the default settings and hit the back arrow until we're back on the devices screen. Next up is the ALC 2B 2-button switch. Again, make sure it's activated by pressing both buttons on the device. On the app, click the arrow next to the device name. Add S03 to the name and press Save. From here, you can change the button functions, but for this example, we will keep the default settings and press the back arrow. Next, we will provision the ALC CMP sealing sensor. Again, add S03 to the name and press Save. As before, we will keep the default settings and hit the back arrow. Finally, provision the ALC IWD switch by hitting the arrow next to the device name. Once again, add S03 to the name and hit Save. To keep the default settings, press the back arrow. Now that our devices for Space 3 have been provisioned, select Spaces on the bottom row. Create Space 3 by typing S03 in the box and clicking Add. Now go into the space by clicking on it. To create zones for Space 3, select the Zones icon on the bottom row. We will only create one zone for Space 3 and call it Z01. Press Add. Now go into the zone by clicking on its arrow. Make sure Outputs is selected on the bottom row and press the plus icon. Select the phase dimming controller we provisioned in the last step and click Save and then Ready. When complete, press OK. Now we will add our inputs by selecting the Inputs icon on the bottom row and pressing the plus icon. We will again need to wake up the sealing sensor by pressing its button and the 2-button switch by pressing both the top and bottom buttons. Now select the 2-button switch, sealing sensor, and IWD switch from the Unassigned Inputs section, and click Save and Ready. When complete, press OK. At this point, you can configure the zone, but for this example, we will leave the zone settings at their default and hit the back arrow until we are back on the Areas screen. You have now successfully created a project, an area within the project, 3 spaces within the area, and several zones within those spaces. You have also renamed and provisioned several input and output devices and created your own custom settings. If you have any questions or need help at any step in the process, you can view our Arista App User Guide linked below in the description, or you can contact technical support through the information listed on the screen. And be sure to check out our other videos on YouTube or visit the Intermatic.com webpage for more tutorials.